Welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple weeks since I made a video and updated anything on progress on the PoisonDART here. Work took me away for a couple weeks basically, and I wasn't able to do a whole lot for those 2 weeks. It's just a weekend in between two travel dates, and so it was a week in Oklahoma City and then back home for a weekend and then out to California, Sacramento, Roseville. So made it back home, did get some stuff done to the car, and figured I'd make a video on the progress of what's been done and share with everybody. So I'm going to turn the camera around here and let you see what's going on. So we got the electric fans mounted, one on the radiator, and then there's one right here on the transmission cooler. Lower radiator hose mounted, made, whatever. It's one of the flex stainless steel hoses, since we're going from passenger side outlet or inlet on the water pump to driver's side out on the radiator. It was tough getting a radiator hose, a rubber hose that was had the right bends and all of that, and it was cost prohibitive to buy a radiator hose and cut it all up to try to make a radiator hose. So I ordered that one, and it's leak free, doesn't leak anywhere or anything like that. Also got the alternator mounted. Of course, there's a belt on it now, and right down there you can see that space between the pulley and the harmonic balancer, that there's a spacer in there. Me and Dad machined on his lathe to make up the difference of the thickness of the motor plate plus the extra water pump gasket, because there's one on the back side and then one on the front side. Also made a throttle return spring bracket and throttle cable bracket. And the issues with the floats, the needles and seats not shutting off on the ATM carburetor has been fixed. I gave him a call and told him what was going on, and he asked me what I wanted to do. I think his name's Brian. He asked me what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to send the carburetor back, have them look at it, fix it, whatever, and then send it back to me. I said no, that I didn't want to take a week sending the carburetor to him and then another week getting it back. I didn't want to wait that long, so I told him just send me 2 new needles and seats and the secondary pump diaphragm. And they did. They were here within 3 days, but I wasn't here. I was out of town traveling, so I wasn't able to get the parts installed on the carburetor till I got back home from Oklahoma City. And I installed those parts, and the issues with the needles and seats went away, and the primary or the secondary diaphragm, pump diaphragm, is no longer leaking weeping fuel. So that's a plus. And all the brakes are plumbed, bled. The old line lock hooked up, it works. I had to my haste to run wires out here, I just found an empty hole in the firewall, and didn't really pay much attention to what was around it. Well, the hole that I used was the hole for the throttle cable to go through the firewall. So I had to reroute my wires that come through the firewall from the switch plate or the relay panel down here on the floor. Down here, I had to reroute my wires that go up to the engine compartment through another hole. It was already there. I didn't have to drill anything. I had to make it a little bigger, but there was already a hole there for something or other, probably the heater box. But so the fan relay is down here. It's got an adjustable thermostat on it. I still need to get some grommets to put in these valve covers. There's odd sizes for whatever reason, and it's tough to get a grommet for that. And the fill cap, you almost have to run a double gasket on the fill cap for it to snug up on those valve covers. So that needs to be addressed. But the trans brake's wired up and it functions. It has a reverse. You push the trans brake button and the car backs up, or neutral. Put the car in neutral and push the trans brake button and the car will back up. So I still need to wire up the alternator. So I need to run the battery wire back in here to the panel to charge the battery, and an ignition wire. And I don't know if I'm going to use the factory gauge in the cluster for my voltage or what I'm going to do there yet, but I'll figure that out later. But I need to run the wires for the alternator so it's functional 100%. So also in the process of bleeding the brakes, these are the rear disc kits from Right Stuff, and the calipers are supposed to adjust through the emergency brake arm, and since the car has no emergency brake hooked up, the pistons and the calipers would return all the way out, and it couldn't build any sort of brake pedal because the pistons would move all the way back in every time you let off the pedal. If you pumped it 3 times, then you would get a little bit of pedal and the back brakes would hold the tires, but just a single pump it wouldn't. So talked to Dad, ran it by him to see what he thought it could be, and we started tossing stuff back and forth and figured that out, that the calipers were adjustable and were out of adjustment. It didn't dawn on me when I was putting them on there that they would need to be adjusted until we went to bleed the brakes. And I went through a whole quart of brake fluid trying to get air out of the system, and then chasing down leaks and so on and so forth. And then the back brake issue. But that's all squared away now. No issues there. And so today is July 13th. Today's July 13th. So you guys probably won't see this video until July 14th, but we were able to get the car to move on its own. Mud on the side of it. We also had a pool installed in that time, between the last video and this video, and we've been working on moving dirt, so there's that extra work. But we were able to get the car to move on its own, and back and forth in here in the shop, just back up, pull forward, just to make sure the transmission worked, the brake worked, the line lock worked, all the things, the little things function. Initially, I think the circuit that the trans brake solenoid ran through, it was on a 5 amp, and it burnt that fuse up, you know, within a few seconds of holding the trans brake button. So obviously I swapped that out to like a 15 amper, and it's fine now. No issues there. The trans brake button works fine. So yeah, that's a little update on what's been done to the car since the last video. And I'm wanting to show you a little bit of the car moving on its own, and running outside the shop once I got the alternator mounted, and me and Dad made that pulley spacer just for the belt tracking and all that, to make sure the belt would stay on it, and so on and so forth. And yeah, but that's my update. I appreciate all the new subscribers. I think we've gained like 50 since the last video, which is good, and that's great. And I was able to send the original owner, the guy I bought the car from up in East China, Michigan, a video, some videos and some pics of it, and he's super excited to see it running and moving on its own, and so that's cool. And yeah, so he's super excited to get the videos and the pictures of the car. It's changed a lot, obviously, since he had it, and super excited. I think you guys will be too when you see this video of the old PoisonDART moving, listening to it run. It sounds so good. But I'm sure the neighbors don't like it much. I know the dogs don't like it much, so they head for the hills when it starts, and I'm sure the neighbors aren't super happy about it either, but hey, it is what it is. We live out in the county, and it's like after 9 o'clock here now, and it's still daylight, as you can see, still plenty of daylight, so it is what it is. They'll have to get used to it. All right, so I'm going to sign off from here, and hopefully we'll get another video up within the next week or so of more progress or more motivation. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.